You are about to enter Chuck versus the podcast, the place for people who love Chuck and the people who work on Chuck. The only show that takes you behind the scenes with the stars.
Yvonne Strahovski.
Zachary Levi. Joshua Gomez.
Ryan McParland.
Adam Balba.
Sarah Lancaster.
Interactive interviews.
Julia Ling.
Phil Clemmer.
All the cast.
Dixon High. Tony Hale. Scott Krinsky. Mark Christopher Lawrence.
Anita Friederici.
Fun hosts.
This is Mel. This is Liz. Now you can see how wacko we are.
The writers.
Ali Adler. Scott Rosenbaum. Zev Barrow.
The editors.
Matt Barber. Jeff Granville. Kevin Mock.
Contests.
We are giving away a Chuck press kit.
The directors.
Jason Ensign. Norman Buckley.
The guest stars.
Steve Austin.
Kristen Group.
The music.
This is Tim Jones.
Guest hosts.
I'm Kaylee from Toronto.
Conventions.
Lights come up, and here comes Jester out on stage.
Set visits.
This is the guy right here.
And much more. Are you ready? This is great.
This is Mel.
This is Liz.
And we want to welcome you to Chuck versus the Podcast, episode 47 for April 2nd, 2010. In case you missed it, we released 2 episodes last week. One very long marathon podcast with Kevin Mock, editor for Chuck. And also, the very next day, we had the privilege of releasing an interview with Scott Rosenbaum, who used to be a writer for Chuck and now is the executive producer and showrunner for the new remake of V. And so we hope you do support Scott by watching V. And also, if you missed one of those podcasts, I urge you to go back and listen. There's some great stuff in there. But speaking about great stuff, we have an excellent episode planned for you today. The highlight of our episode is that you've been asking for it for months. It's finally here, our fan campaign to get season 4 of Chuck happening. We'll tell you more about that in a bit.
Well, speaking of highlights, the ratings are in for Chuck versus the American Hero, and they're good!
Woohoo!
After a couple of weeks of disappointing ratings, we have an uptick this week. According to TV by the Numbers, approximately 5.68 million viewers tuned into that episode of Chuck, which is a 10% increase over the previous week. We also saw that all-important 18 to 49 demo increase from 1.9 to 2.1, which, if previous trends hold true, this is just the beginning of an uphill climb for the Chuck ratings, and we expect there to be just a continued increase every week. So we're really excited about that, especially coming off such a strong episode.
Absolutely.
Definitely. I mean, I would say word of mouth is going to get out that there's some good Chuck happening.
Yeah.
I wondered how the reaction on Twitter from those of us in Eastern and Central time zones may have impacted the ratings, because the immediate reaction, well, even throughout the episode on Twitter, people were going, "Oh my gosh, this is so good. Oh, this is so good." And then after the end, there was just an overwhelming OMG! That was awesome! Best Chuck yet! So in the Mountain time zone and Pacific time zones, we're going, "No, we can't wait. We want to watch it." So I wonder what kind of an impact that had. Yeah.
Great.
Hard to predict, hard to track those things, but just something I wonder. And really, I think that next week we're going to see another increase just based on this good word of mouth and such an excellent episode.
Right.
Oh yeah, and the fact that everybody knows, or I hope everybody knows, that episode 13 of season 3 is the one that was supposed to be the finale. So that's where all of the stops are pulled, and I mean, it's going to be an awesome episode.
That's right. And we ought to mention that after this next week episode, which would have been the season finale, then there will be a 2-week break when NBC is showing reruns of Chuck, which hasn't happened since season 1, I think. And then we will have the back 6 airing nonstop after that. And part of the reason for that is because NBC moved the season finale out to May 24th, which is after pretty much everything else ends. And they're also airing the last 2 episodes back to back on May 24th. So they had a couple of weeks that they needed to just take a little break. And that was a natural breaking point there, right after what would have been the season finale and leading into what sounds like an incredible back 6 episodes.
Definitely. Please try to watch live if you can, because ratings do count for, not as much, but they do count for repeats as well.
That's true. And actually, we do know the first one they're going to air is episode 305, Chuck versus the Chuck versus First Class.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yes, that's a really excellent one. And an easy one for new viewers to get into, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So good choice there. But we don't know what the second one's going to be yet. Maybe we should email NBC with our suggestions.
Oh, could be.
Maybe they'll
Good
do
idea.
a viewer's choice.
Maybe.
Yep. And we should mention that there's a good chance that we will also be taking a break from the podcast during that time. At least 1 week, maybe 2. It's been really busy the last few months. We've been releasing a lot more frequently than we did last year. And so I think we do need a little bit of a break. It'll depend on interviews and contests and all that kind of thing, but probably we will.
We're tired.
Yeah.
Oh, anyway, we do have more news that we want to get into. Josh Gomez met with fans and signed some autographs at the NBC Experience store at 30 Rock on Monday. And Yvonne Strahovski is the cover girl for the April issue of the Saturday Night Magazine. Photos are at yvonnestrahovski.net. You can see those photos there. Zachary Levi attended the Nickelodeon Kids' Choice Awards, where he accepted the Orange Blimp for Best Movie for Alvin and the Chipmunks, The Squeakquel. So,
Yeah.
Yay, Zach.
Which my wife and daughter saw, and they said it was actually quite good.
Yeah,
They both reported that Zachary Levi did an excellent job.
My son saw it. He was thrilled.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And E! Online has again launched their annual Save One Show poll. And this has actually been happening since Monday, and Chuck is one of the bubble shows in contention. So we urge you to go to the Save One Show site. You can get the link at chucktv.net and make sure to get your vote in. Now, I voted yesterday and today. Is it once a day that you can vote, or how does that work?
I think it is once a day. And we also had to point out that on this particular poll, you will not see the results. They have the results hidden. We've had a few questions about that, some confusion and people saying, but I don't know who's in the lead. Well, they don't want you to know. So when you put in your vote and enter the little CAPTCHA word to make sure you're not a spam bot, you're just going to see a thank you screen. You're not going to see any results or anything. So make sure you stop by once a day and put in your vote.
As long as you're not a spam bot.
Right.
That's right.
And if you're a spam bot, please turn off the podcast right now.
Yeah.
There's
please
nothing for you here.
Yeah. And Zach and Yvonne filmed a very funny video asking fans to vote for Chuck. And in this video, they promised to do some crazy stuff to get a 4th season, including some skydiving. And what was it that Yvonne was promising?
She was the one promising the skydiving.
Oh, right.
Zach.
Zach promised something else with Joshua Gomez.
Yes. And it really needs to be seen to be truly appreciated. So.
Yeah. So definitely see that video at chucktv.net.
In production news, the season 3 production has wrapped. They've had the wrap party and everything. Matt Barber, the editor, has tweeted that he's done with the first round of edits for the final couple of episodes. Of course, it's got more to go through in post-production, but they're on the home stretch. They're almost done with the season.
Yep. And that's going to mean that you're going to be able to see them in other projects. We know of a few of them, and we've mentioned a few of them on the podcast, but I know it's really fun to see these actors in other things that they shoot in the breaks.
Mm-hmm.
But we're leading now into our very, very special announcement, and that's something that we've been talking about and thinking about for quite a while. People have been emailing and twittering asking, what are we going to do about getting a season 4? And you know that for getting a season 3, that the place that it all started was on the podcast and chucktv.net when we announced the Watch, Buy, Share, Write campaign. And that was the thing that snowballed and added more and more people. And there were other creative ideas that happened after that. But that was the beginning of the fan campaign that would result eventually in season 3 happening. While we are starting our campaign for season 4, and it is Chuck Declassified. If you can imagine, just go with me a little bit here.
Here come the props.
Here come the props. I always have to have props. Now, this was the Chuck press kit, which of course was done like is something you might get as a spy, a kit that comes by courier, special courier, and it involves secrets that are inside. And so again, if you'll go with me, imagine that the Chuck show is like one of these best kept secrets. We know it's an awesome show. If you're watching this podcast, you're a fan of the show, and you know how awesome it is. And you also know, as you've introduced your friends and your family and your coworkers to it, that there's a lot of them that they may not have even heard of the show. Or if they did hear about it, maybe even they saw an ad, they just didn't realize what kind of show it was. And that when they actually see it and experience it, it's like there's a new world opening, and they love it. Well, that's kind of like secret documents. When they're declassified, it can open up new doors for study, for understanding things that have been going on. And so imagine the spy kit opening up. That's what we want to do with Chuck. And so the Chuck Declassified contest and campaign is going to involve everybody taking out ads. This may mean in newspapers. This may mean in magazines. This may mean in online sources. There are lots of places that you can post ads for free. Say, for instance, like Craigslist is one of them. And what we're asking people to do is post ads advertising Chuck. So you post an ad in Craigslist or in your local newspaper asking people to watch Chuck. We'll have a few sample messages on chucktv.net. You can go there to find some templates that you can use, or you can use your own creative message. And so what you do is you get an ad in the newspaper, and I urge, if you have the cash, to actually do some bold print and do some upgrades if you can. And let's get the message out to non-viewers and non-fans about watching Chuck live on Mondays. And so once you do that, you email us to renew@chucktv.net. And if you have often even in a print ad, there's an online version as well. Send us a link to the ad, and that qualifies as your entry. Make sure you have your contact information in the email. And if it is a print ad and there is not an online version, then either you can take a picture of it or scan it, or if you don't have access to any kind of photo device or scanner, you can send us an email that has the name of the publication and the date. But I think this is really exciting.
That's pretty fun. It's going to be fun. I know that in my neighborhood, in our county, we have a newspaper that is free, and it comes out every week, every Wednesday. And sometimes the price for running an ad is just submitting a recipe for their recipe section. That's all I'd have to do.
Wow.
Creative.
Yeah, and it comes out every week, and it's free. So everybody likes free.
There you go. Somebody submit Casey's quiche recipe with a little tag to watch Chuck, and there you go.
There you go.
Yeah. And so, Mel, what have we got for prizes?
Well, to start with, our prizes will be you get to go to the NBC store and go to their little Chuck section, and you can choose either the Nerd Herd kit or the Buy More kit, which are pretty cool. They both come with shirts and then some little accessories. The Buy More kit has a Buy More mug and an ID badge with a little USB. And then the other one, the Nerd Herd one, is the black Nerd Herd shirt, and it comes with a cap and a lanyard. So the winner will get to, we'll draw at random from all of the eligible entries, and the winner will get to choose either of those kits as their prize. But stay tuned and keep checking, because we anticipate getting to add even more very cool prizes as the competition takes off. So be sure to check back frequently and get your ads in. You can place as many ads as you want and send them in as separate entries so that you can enter as many times as you want. You just have to have an eligible ad with each entry. So good luck. Get out there.
Good luck.
Spread the word.
Spread the word.
Please do. And we love hearing your stories too. If you happen to hear of any feedback, you probably won't, because people will just see that ad and watch, and hopefully we'll just see it in the ratings. But I think it's just incredibly exciting. And then make sure you do check back at chucktv.net. You'll have all the latest updates as we upgrade the prizes, as I'm sure it's going to happen as we get people involved in this contest. It's very, very cool.
Chuck fans are some of the most creative, so we know you guys can do it.
Yep, absolutely. Chuck Declassified. Let's declassify our favorite show. And so we're going to move on to what I thought was an excellent episode of Chuck. Chuck, episode 12 of season 3, Chuck versus the American Hero. What did you guys think of the episode?
Oh, I thought it was excellent. This one was, it was more upbeat. It was fun. It was funny. It was, it had everything. It had it's had its dramatic moments, heartfelt moments, but they really meant something. I don't know. I liked. I made a list of all the things I liked, but I'm not going to read it off to you.
Well, I mean, right from the beginning, we see Chuck in Washington, and I thought it was just fun. And like everything from his nervousness when he enters the building and forgetting the floor, then going and dropping his gun, and the secretary already knowing his name, and you just got that he was not in his element there.
Yeah.
As much as he's been a big fish in a small pond in Burbank, now he's a tiny fish in this sea of military and spies and all of that. And I love that even the ring agent stuff was funny. As much as shooting somebody can be funny, but what he says, move back, and then he shoots her and she falls right onto that the slab, and he pushes her into the drawer and just keeps on going. I mean, great
Cold.
stuff.
Very
Yeah.
cold.
Yeah, I like that you saw season 1 Chuck in the opening
Yeah.
part there. Pretty much season 1 Chuck.
I really enjoyed the interaction with General Beckman. I thought that we've seen a lot of face-to-face interaction between Chuck and Beckman this season, and this was just the culmination of some really good things that had been set up previously. I especially liked it when he was kind of hem-hawing around. I'm not ready. I don't think I'm ready to go, be the billionaire industrialist playboy in Italy. And she says, Chuck, what do you think we've been training you to do for the last 3 years?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
And I understand that hand wringing is part of your process.
Yes. But, she's not really going to put up with it for very long.
Yeah.
Where, Casey and Sarah cut him a little more slack, but she's like, okay, you get like 2 seconds and we're moving on now. She was, there was some tough love going on there, and it was good. And I think it set the tone for the rest of the episode, where we were getting some really blunt statements. I mean, you then move on and Chuck's back to pick his team, and he wants Sarah, and they're in Castle. And he's telling her he wants her to join him, and he's all excited, and now we can be together. And she point blank tells him, you are not the man I fell for.
Yeah.
You killed someone. No interpretation needed. No, a week of debate on the forums necessary. She just said it.
Yeah.
Or finally, we got some point blank. So I think, the characters have finally moved to the point where they are no longer willing to kind of tiptoe around some of these really complicated issues. And they're saying, you know what, it's time to just be honest with each other, which I appreciated. And we saw that throughout the episode. We saw it with Chuck telling Sarah, I love you. I liked how that sounded, so I'm going to say it again. I love you. And Ellie. Oh, how much did I love Ellie in this episode? Oh my gosh.
Oh, yeah.
When she takes Chuck to task and says, you're a Bartowski. Get out there and do it better.
Oh, that was awesome.
Fight for her.
And when she's taking the guys to task,
Yes.
and she says, okay, he didn't come to me, and it resulted in jail.
Yes. And she references Casey's lewd behavior.
Yeah.
And the look on his face, what?
Yeah.
But yeah, they weren't pulling any punches this time.
Mm-hmm. I should mention as well that the guy who directed this episode is Jeremiah Chechik. I actually had coffee with him when I was in LA, and we will be getting him on the podcast soon. But this is the same Jeremiah Chechik that directed Benny and June, that directed National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation.
Oh my.
Yeah, I mean, so he comes by the comedy honestly.
How wonderful.
Yeah.
But he hit the dramatic notes too.
Yeah.
Yeah. The ending. Oh man, that was. It was. I was wondering how the fan base was going to react, and because it seemed like Chuck and Sarah were so close, and now they've been, impeded again. But the way it was handled was so. It's weird to call it this, but it was so hopeful. Mm-hmm. Despite the fact that they're still not together and there's bound to be a misunderstanding about what's going on. And Shaw is clearly unhinged.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. So.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
We're setting up for some epicness. Everybody take a drink for the next episode. And but boy, the ending was suspenseful and dramatic and but hopeful and gleeful at the same time. So
Yeah, it was very telling, of course, when Sarah put that gun down on the bed. She looks at it and she puts it down on the bed and starts to walk out. I said, yeah, there it is right there. That's Sarah making her decision and her choice right there.
yeah.
Well, in the interesting part of that, I can't remember if it was Jace Lacob or who it was who pointed out that she looked like she had made her decision before Casey came in.
She did. She absolutely did. Putting the gun down was to say, I'm not going to be a spy anymore.
Yeah.
And then when Casey comes in and he's going to tell her the secret, and she says, that's really not necessary. And the wording of that was, it's not necessary because she's already chosen Chuck.
Yeah. But at the same time, when Casey did tell her, you could just see a lightness come over her.
Yes.
Oh, Yvonne is so good at that.
Oh,
She
like
is.
it was like she was totally transformed.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Just beaming from within.
Yeah.
That's a particular talent of hers, and I don't know how she manages to do it, but it was a beautiful moment for Sarah, and it was an impressive one as far as acting goes. But I also really liked it that Casey did go to her, and tell her that, and the friendship that they formed is not just because they were colleagues. It's not over because he's no longer working for the government. Although Morgan did have to take him to task a little bit.
Yeah.
Thought you're a Marine. You're not going to just roll over and die.
Yeah. I mean, Casey's a little bit hurting at the moment. But you could really see him wrestling. Like at the beginning and where we left off in the previous episode, it was just not an option that Chuck could never tell her. But you could see him wrestling throughout this episode. He could see that he had to tell her. Even like when they were in the van, they cut to him listening to that point when they were talking, and you could see it was eating at him.
Mm-hmm. And yet he didn't. I loved it that he told her that there's just one secret that I can't tell you, but there's nothing else that I will ever keep from you. I'll never keep another secret from you. And she trusted him. Based on that alone, she trusted him and went for him anyway, which I loved. I thought it was beautiful.
Yeah. And I know that unfortunately Shaw doesn't have a lot of fans, but she'll go for a killer Chuck with secrets over Shaw.
Well, bless her heart. Just when she thinks that she's going for the safe and the simple with Shaw, she's getting out of the complicated. She's going back to the kind of Bryce sort of relationship, which I never thought was all that deep. Suddenly all of this, he pulls the I'm going after my dead wife's killer, which Sarah doesn't realize that's her yet. But I mean, suppose you're dating someone and you're just starting this relationship. They've just gone on their real first date. Mm-hmm. And he's decided he's going to go off and avenge his wife who's been dead for 5 years. I mean, come on, ladies, red flag.
Yeah.
Right?
Just.
Yeah. Let me know how that goes for you. Okay. Tell me when you get back.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, she was really trying to move on because she believed that Chuck was no longer the man that she fell in love with, as she told him. at the beginning, but as the story progresses, you can see her just saying, you know what, that's safe and simple is never going to be safe and simple, and Chuck's the one I love, and that's who I'm going for. So that's how I interpreted it.
Yeah, and while we're on the ending, and we'll go back to talk about a few things earlier in the episode, but they were very careful to focus a couple of times, at least 3 times, I think, very close shots of Shaw's ring. He picked it up, he put it on, you saw it on his finger as they were driving away. Even though my theory is that they're going to wrap up that part of the next episode very quickly, because they have to get on to a number of other things later in the episode. This is just a theory. I don't know anything about the next episode, but I do think that what we saw in the preview, which wasn't much, I think is going to be wrapped up fairly early in the episode. Just my theory. Okay. Which apparently is not shared with anybody.
We're not in the spoiler section, so I don't
Okay.
I don't know what to say to that.
I don't know anything. I think Mel does. So anyway, my theory will go to
if
air.
you're interested in spoilers, be sure to stick around, because Snickers, or Nick, capped the promo for 313 for the next episode, and we have the screen caps up, and so we're going to talk about that a little bit in the spoiler section. But yeah.
Yep. Well, why don't we talk a little bit about the subplot of the bros helping Chuck, which was interesting because we saw Casey coming together with Morgan and Devin, and even saw Lester and Jeff getting into the action. So you had a full complement of bros going to bat for Chuck.
Yeah, that's true.
The guy has loyal friends, doesn't he?
Yeah.
And Casey has just been drawn kicking and screaming into that mix.
Yeah.
And whether he likes it or not, he is now part of Chuck's support system. And I liked that Morgan and Devin just, basically said, well, you're part of the gang. Let's go.
Yeah.
Took him with them.
We had some cool lines. We had the love is a battlefield.
Yeah. We had the bubble of handsomeness.
Bubble of handsomeness.
Which you'll notice Devin does not refute.
Right.
Yeah.
Point Morgan.
We had very entertaining in their creepiness, Jeff and Lester.
Finally, stalker skills come in handy.
Yeah, I like the fact that they were able to. Matt Miller, I should point out, wrote this episode, that he was able to achieve a lot of that humor without being terribly rude. I don't even know, because obviously we know that they're rude, but you don't have to use rude language, I guess you want to call it that. Like, he really conveyed a deep creepiness.
He did.
Yeah.
Without getting terribly rude with it, which is so cool. I love that.
Yeah.
Just having Chuck question why they needed brass knuckles when they were stalking someone. That's all you needed to just get the vibe. And then for them to immediately leave when Chuck said, okay, so you're going to be my backup. They're like, no way, man.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I don't believe in violence. And then he rips his jacket open and he's got all the weapons.
I love how those two think that they're so much better than Chuck, and they don't know what they're doing.
They helped, though.
They did, but they knew it. They knew it. They're like, we know what we're doing. This is stalking. We know how to do it better than anybody. We wrote the book.
And then we had a really good stakeout sequence at the restaurant. It was a full sequence with lots of different action going on. We had the action in the van and the humor between the characters. We had the dinner scene with at first Shaw, and then we had Chuck entering. We had the ring operatives there. Morgan with his voice disguiser and then being found out by Shaw and getting tasered. I loved Casey's line where he says he can't get into the action because his days of legalized body snatching are over.
Clearly not a problem for some other people on the show. But.
Yeah. And then Devin getting into the action. Like there was action for every character, which was great stuff. And even Ellie, I forgot to mention, but she had some really good stuff. And I just thought she's one of the, I don't want to say underappreciated, but undermentioned maybe actors on the show. Like she is almost always in one location, so she doesn't have all these interesting locations to play off of, and she gets these understated scenes that are really touching, really brilliant. She always has that great chemistry with Zach. I think she did great job in this episode, even though she had very small scenes to work with.
Whenever she's on screen, she's really owning it.
Yeah.
Her scenes are always powerful, no matter if they're supposed to be humorous or dramatic or just really, really touching. I had a little light bulb moment. I was talking to Liz about this earlier. I don't know why it didn't occur to me, because they've been talking about going to Africa since episode 9. But I just suddenly had this light bulb of remembering Jeffster singing Africa at their wedding.
Oh.
Yeah, that's what I said. Oh.
I mean, the callbacks on this show are insane.
Yeah.
When they do things like that. So, anyway, it's not really apropos of anything. It was just another aha moment.
Yeah.
But yes, I thought Sarah Lancaster was tremendous in this episode. I thought, of course, Ellie didn't have a whole lot to do, but what she did have was good stuff. Yeah, good stuff from Sarah Lancaster. And I really liked seeing her taking Chuck to task and saying, Sarah is worth fighting for. Go for it. Be a Bartowski. Use all your geeky charm. And get her back.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
I hope we're going to be seeing some Ellie and Sarah scenes.
Yeah.
In the rest of these episodes, because they have only had a couple, but they're always good.
We should mention the Ring operatives. I thought were really strong bad guys in this episode. First, the guy who was in the morgue in the beginning, and then again at the scene at the restaurant, and then again later on when he comes to meet, or when Shaw comes to meet them. Really, really good, very believable actor. And then we got to meet the director,
Mark Shepard.
Yeah. Who did a bang up job as the director.
Or the hologram.
Yeah, the hologram.
And I could have done without Shaw's no reaction to seeing Sarah, but it was a minor nitpick for me. But yes, I was excited to see Mark Shepard. That's when you know that your genre show has really arrived. It's when Mark Shepard guest stars. Yeah. That's the vote of approval, the seal of approval for his genre show. So and we know that he's in the next episode as well.
Oh, good.
So, he's okay. Maybe we didn't all know that. He's in the next episode.
Yeah.
So we'll get more of him.
I'm glad, because I really like Mark Shepard when he's in those nasty boy roles. He plays them well.
Yeah.
He plays them very cool and calm.
Yeah. And I know you could see it coming a mile away, but when the airstrike came and the building blew up and Sarah thought both of them had died, and then Chuck comes out carrying Shaw, and the music is pumping, and I mean, okay, as much as I knew it was coming, I still loved that moment. I mean, just
it
Chuck
was still a
coming.
reward. You knew it was going to happen, but it was a reward. And it also comes after all these mentions of Shaw being an American hero. Oh, he's going to be an American hero. Oh, and then Chuck's the one.
Yeah, Chuck's the hero.
Yeah. So we need to mention the Spies Like Us reference.
Yes, I had an email about that. I've been trying to track that movie down for a while because I want to rewatch it. The last time I saw it was when it came out, which was 80s. I saw it in the theater, actually. But that was the pop machine, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
The Dr. Jib. Yeah. That was good.
Yeah, and that scene itself was very funny when he's grabbing for dear life on the pop machine.
Yes.
Yeah.
Loved it.
Yeah. So, but the scenes between Zach and Yvonne were definitely the thread in this episode that I thought just it was all the stuff that we've been waiting to see. Him say I love you, her finding out that the spy test wasn't real, and making that decision to go off together. And for the first time since I guess the second last episode of season 2, was it the second last, Chuck vs. Colonel?
Yeah.
When they make a decision to go off together, and they're making that decision, except gets usurped a little bit.
Yeah. I did like that they showed Sarah being so worried that she didn't have a cell phone signal, that I need to call Chuck. I need to call Chuck.
Mm-hmm.
I like that she had that concern. So there's just no doubt what was going through her mind. And it served to show how that she had chosen Chuck, but I think it also showed us that she has no clue what Shaw's game is now.
Mm-hmm.
Which, setting us up for next week. But
I'm glad they didn't leave us with Chuck standing at the train station.
Yeah.
Not knowing, is this her answer? So clearly they're moving this along very well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's one of my... I don't have a lot of complaints about this season, but one of them is that almost, especially in the recent episodes, they keep ending it on such a downer emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
And, Chuck at the train station would have been where they ended it, last episode or the episode before. But instead, we see him get the call from Beckman, go to Castle, find out Sarah's off with Shaw, and that Shaw knows that Sarah killed Eve. And so we don't have that, I don't know, I guess emotional manipulation, which is certainly not exclusive to this show. Liz and I are fans of True Blood, and that's a heart attack every week with that cliffhanger. But, it was just nice to see a continuation of that scene instead of leaving us on this really emotionally dark moment for a change. It was nice to see that instead of having to wait till next week, because my goodness, you guys, we have a lot of good stuff coming up next week, and I want it to be Monday right now.
I twittered on Monday night asking if anybody had a time machine.
Yeah, if only.
Yeah, I think that about covers the episode, except for one thing, and that's that we actually have an interview with the writer of the episode, or co-writer with Phil Klemmer, but we have an interview for the first time with writer Matt Miller. And that interview is coming up in a separate podcast, which is actually coming out later on today. So if you want to hear more about Chuck versus the American Hero, you can hear it right from the horse's mouth from the writer himself, Matt Miller. So please watch for that podcast later on today, and I hope you enjoy it. So, Mel, you have a message for us.
I do. We want to also thank our sponsors, Movie Morons, which is a podcast about all things film and is not moronic in the least. You can find them at moviemorons.com. And we also want to thank our other sponsor, SerienJunkies.de, which is the largest television fan site in Germany. If you are a German speaker or reader, you should stop by SerienJunkies.de and catch up on all the latest news about your favorite TV shows, including Chuck.
Mm-hmm. And again, another way that you can support us is go to chuckpodcast.blip.tv and watch the podcast. Every time you watch, we get just a tiny little kickback, and we appreciate your support because it does add up. The tiny bits add up to quite a lot of tiny bits, and that helps us a lot.
Absolutely.
But you may not enjoy housekeeping, but there's a very important housekeeping announcement that I need for you to listen to. And that's that there is an iTunes place that you can get the podcast that doesn't cost us anything. And it's the exact same podcast as you get from another iTunes place that costs us money, and actually costs us a lot of money recently because of the video podcasts. And so it's very, very important that you listen to me on this. Please go, if you do follow the podcast in iTunes, whether in your computer or on your iPod or iPhone, please go to your iTunes and check the title of the podcast. And if it says enhanced AAC in brackets, that feed will be discontinued soon. It's now the end of March as we record this podcast, and April 15th is the date that I'm setting that I'm going to be cutting off that feed, because you get the exact same information in another one that you can actually get a link at chuckpodcast.com. It's called the Blip Fed iTunes. If you go to iTunes and just search for Chuck versus the podcast, it's the one that doesn't have brackets after it. So there's Chuck versus the podcast in brackets MP3. That one will always be available as an audio only. There's Chuck versus the podcast in brackets enhanced AAC. That's the one that is no longer to be used. And then there's just Chuck versus the podcast with no brackets. That's the one that you need to subscribe to. So what you'll need to do in your iTunes, unsubscribe from the enhanced AAC, and then find the link from either chuckpodcast.com or search it at the iTunes Music Store to get the new podcast and subscribe to that one, and you'll have all of the same stuff. And, of course, you can always watch it at blip.tv if you're at your computer.
You mentioned that the iTunes has the MP3 feed still, so you can still get just the audio version of the podcast, correct? Okay. We had somebody email in about that, and I can't remember who that is. Oh, gosh. I'm sorry. I'm trying to find that while we're recording here, but somebody had emailed and said that she wished that the audio only was still available because she likes to listen while she's driving, and sometimes the video really distracts her. So please stop watching that while you're driving. And
yeah, we've actually had quite a few emails about that. And there are actually two different ways you can get it, or more than two. You can get the link to the RSS feed at chuckpodcast.com. So if you have an other music player like a Zune, you can subscribe to the RSS feed, and it'll tell you when the updates come. You can also download them directly from chuckpodcast.com. Every time there's a post, there's always a little download link to download the audio, or you can get them from iTunes. Just search for the Chuck versus the podcast in brackets MP3. We will always make available an audio-only version.
Good deal.
Yep.
Cool. And of course, if you have any questions or comments, you can always share them with us. Email those to mail@chuckpodcast.com.
Yep. And so that's all we have for non-spoilery stuff. Watch later on today for our interview with writer Matt Miller. And also, watch for us next week when we discuss what was going to be the finale, episode 13 of season 3. And please make sure you watch it live. Let's get all our friends to watch it live. And remember the contest, Chuck Declassified. Let's advertise for people to watch it live.
And we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
And we're back. And Mel, you've got some spoilers for us.
I do. The promo for the next episode, Chuck versus the Other Guy, was kind of snarky on NBC's behalf. They said, well, we can't really show you much because then you'd be spoiled, and we know you don't want spoilers. And then they flashed a whole bunch of images. So, little stinkers. Unfortunately for them, Chuck fans are super tech savvy. Mm-hmm. And Nick, a.k.a. Snickers, screen capped several very tantalizing moments from the promo, which we have posted at chucktv.net. We've got an image of Chuck and Sarah awfully close to smooching and looking pretty happy about it. Mm-hmm. Casey lighting up a cigar and looking rather smug. There's Chuck with a gun pulled apparently on Shaw, who appears to be kneeling. And remember, context is everything here. Mm-hmm. There's Chuck getting beaten up and then beating someone up. There's two people rappelling down an elevator shaft. Sarah crying. Sarah and Chuck apparently being held hostage by the ring. The ring director is there. And there's a whole bunch of guns pulled on them. And then there's finally an image of Sarah holding a gun on someone. We don't know who.
Yep, and sound, we hear 2 gunshots.
Two gunshots.
Who did Sarah shoot twice, or are there 2 people that Sarah shoots, or did somebody else shoot twice? We don't know.
Let the speculation begin.
And has it. The forums are having a lot of fun with this, trying to figure out what's going on. So, again, thank you to Nick for tapping those and letting us post them. And you can find those at chucktv.net under the spoiler section.
Yep.
That's right. More spoilers. Our girl Allie Adler was keeping the title of Chuck, of the Chuck season finale to herself when asked a couple of weeks ago. But Osiello has gone ahead and he's put it out there. The question was, you seem to know a lot about Chuck's season finale, and I thank you for sharing, but do you know the title? And that was from Lindsay. Lindsay wants to know this. And Osiello says, well, I think you mean titles, meaning plural. Remember, it's a 2-hour extravaganza. The first hour is titled Chuck versus the Subway, and the second is Chuck versus the Ring Part 2. So what does it all mean? Don't know.
Wow.
Chuck versus the Subway and Chuck versus the Ring Part 2.
Now, could that be an underground travel tube subway, or?
I hope so.
Yeah.
Well, Chuck titles always have more than one meaning.
Mm-hmm.
So I would anticipate that the obvious subway connection also comes into play here. But yes, I think it's also going to refer to the transportation as well. So what other things are called a subway? Those are the only 2 things I can think of.
5-foot-long subway.
5 foot long?
Yeah, I could see Jeff and Lester having some kind of a shindig party or something.
Yeah.
That's right, to celebrate the worst music video ever made.
Oh, that's true.
You know, they spent 2 whole weekends on it.
Yeah.
So,
and I know it's pretty early, but it's interesting to speculate on. I mean, think about the Ring. We really had almost no idea who the Ring were in the middle of season 2. Or like when was the Ring introduced? It was like late season 2.
Wasn't it?
We had Fulcrum that they were fighting for most of season 2, right?
Wasn't it in Colonel, or was it the one before that we were introduced?
But at any rate, they were fighting one enemy, and all of a sudden they discovered the Ring, and that's all they've been fighting since then. Right. Are we going to get introduced to a new enemy toward the end of the season? What is it that they're going to do that's going to spin it in a new direction?
The threat has to escalate if there's going to be a season 4.
And and this is the spoiler section, so we can mention that is it Osiello that mentioned that there will be a death in the last episode?
Yep. There is a significant death. I believe.
A significant death. Some have said that it could be the Ring director. Some have hoped that it could be Shaw. But
I love that.
Significant death.
A significant death.
I really hope it's not somebody that we love.
Yeah.
There has been, that's a good opening. Thanks for that, Gray. There's been some speculation on Chuck TV on the main site that it's Sarah, that they're talking about Sarah. It's not Sarah. Promise you, Sarah is not the one that's going to die.
Yeah.
So calm down.
Yeah.
It's not. There have been several, I'm not going to watch the show if Sarah dies. Well, good. Then you can keep watching.
Yeah. As much as Brandon Routh is a great guy, I'm sure. But I'm sure a lot of people are hoping it's him.
Yeah. Well, if he makes it that far.
Yeah. Yep. Cool. So I guess that's all we've got for this week. And
we are light on spoilers because there's going to be that 2-week break between episode 13 and 14. So don't expect there to be anything, any big spoilery stuff coming out. Oh, wait. Except there's WonderCon this weekend. And I will be there with a press pass, talking with Josh Schwartz, Chris Fedak, Zachary Levi, Joshua Gomez, and Adam Baldwin. So we hope to be able to bring you some spoilery tidbits in the next podcast.
Yep. It's going to be great.
Yep.
Wish I could be there.
Wish you guys could be there too.
Yeah.
Stars aligned so that I could be there, but
Yeah.
I know that there are going to be several other Chuck fans and podcasters. Chuck Stable of Hose will have someone there, and the Sarah Walker Fangirls will have someone there. So we're looking forward to having a little confab.
Mm-hmm. And hopefully talk about Chuck Declassified.
Declassified.
Yep. Cool. Well, we better wrap this up.
Yep.
So that we can actually get this to you.
Yes.
So have a great Chuck week.
And we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.